Hey guys, welcome to our species spotlight on the honey Gourami, the Trichogaster tuna. Like we do all of our species spotlights, we're going to do a section on the origin of a fish. Then, of course, we're going to do behavior, size, tank mate, tank type setup. We'll do a segment on that, and then we'll end off with feeding and a quick conclusion about the species itself. So let's get right into it. Let's jump into the origin of the fish. Now the dwarf honey Gourami, or the sometimes known as the dwarf honey Gourami or the honey Gourami, comes from northern India, comes from the floodplains of the Great Ganges River, the lower altitude sections of it. Now, one thing about the honey Gourami is the fact that most of what you get today, or that's commercially available to you, is found in or does come from farms where these fish are commercially raised. Unfortunately, it's resulted in a little bit of hybridization, some crossing between different morphs, and you don't always get what we classically would want to see in a honey Gourami, which is the male that has a really nice dark, deep orange background with a yellow dorsal and a dark blue chest. However, still always a beautiful fish, but you can actively seek those out. I know my personal preference is, of course, that form of the dwarf honey Gourami. Now, one of the important things to mention, as we mentioned, comes from northern India in the floodplains of the Great Ganges River, is the fact that India goes through some very serious monsoon rains from the month of June, usually through to October, and of course these things impact the water quality for these fish. It will result in more turbid water, for example, and can affect the water temperature as well. Usually dips a little bit when there's heavy rains. So these things are always important to be aware of. It will affect water chemistry as well. Regardless of the fact if a species is commercially raised, and even for quite some time, obviously providing it with the conditions that's evolved in is going to provide the fish with the best conditions in terms of it showing its best colors, most likely to reproduce. It'll feed better generally. So there's always an advantage of paying attention to where does the fish come from, what is the type of environment that it experiences. And of course, in these floodplains we were mentioning, a lot of dense vegetation. There's submerged aquatic vegetation within the water, outside the water. Obviously, a planted setup in calmer, less current in an aquarium will be better for the species of fish. So now we've covered the origin of it. Let's jump right into the tank size. You should be maintaining compatibility with other fish, water conditions, and so forth. Now, in general, this is a shy species, and this is why a nice, densely planted aquarium is really best for it. Males of breeding coloration are extremely attractive fish, as we mentioned before. Deep orangey color to the body, can get to even to the brownish kind of amber, darker amber, orangey kind of shade. Really cool fish, bright yellow dorsal, and of course a nice navy chest, blue chest. Females and males in this case are really about the same size. 1.5 to 2 inches approximately, or 4 to 5 centimeters. Females tend to bulk up a little bit more. Obviously, they become laden with eggs. Males are a little bit slimmer. So sizing is approximately the same thing. Now, you want to maintain slower flow rates, calmer water conditions. You certainly don't need a filter with a lot of output. If you want the fish to be more relaxed and act more naturally, that's an important condition. Water hardness, 2 to 12 DKH. 12, in our opinion, is too high. For tank maintenance, really 3 to 5 DKH is a good range to shoot for. Slightly acidic water between 6 and 7 as a pH range is just about dead on perfect for these guys. Now, when you want to maintain a pair of them, we recommend a 15 to 20 gallon. That'll provide some room. Males can chase females around a bit if they do happen to breed. If you have a well-planted 15 to 20 gallon, there's no danger to the female, but she probably would have to be removed possibly at one point if the male starts chasing her a bit too much. Now, if you're going to keep them in a group where you have a bunch of honey Gouramis together, you need a bigger tank than that, probably 30-40 gallons well planted, and there's going to be some dominance exhibited by the dominant male, or the two dominant males. So in general, we prefer really keeping them in a let's say a pair in a mid-sized aquarium around 20 gallons, and then mixing them with tank mates such as dwarf rasboras, dwarf loaches, fish that come from Southeast Asia as well, and or if you want, there's some South American fish that make good tank mates as well. Some of the calmer, smaller tetras very good with honey Gouramis. Even some of the small dwarf cichlids, the smaller species, and of course the ever famous Corridor's catfish species, you know, the smaller ones, great also with honey Gouramis. Now, one of the things you want to do for an anabantid that's always beneficial to them is to make sure the tank is covered. And why do you want to do that? Sure, it prevents jumping, I mean, but you can do that with slightly slower water level as well with floating plants. But you want to maintain a or an air temperature. It's about the same thing as the water temperature. So it's preferential for anabantids. It's again, the type of environment they come from is humid, warmer. So to mimic that with a covered tank and air temperature the same as water temperature, big advantage. Fish definitely do better because of it. And of course, these fish, last but not least, in terms of aquarium keeping and so forth, these are really fish that prefer to live in the mid to upper strata of your aquarium, and so therefore some floating plants and stem plants and so forth benefit these types of fish quite a bit. They feel more relaxed in that type of setup. Now, for perfect water quality, small regular water changes, always good for all fish. But when it comes to a smaller species like this, they're keeping softer, more acidic. It helps stabilize the pH a little bit more that way, especially since you're going to have some other organic matter in the aquarium. So regular, every 1 to 2 weeks, doing a 15 to 20% water change is really going to benefit that kind of setup. Now, in terms of feeding, simple to take care of these fish. They have small upturned mouths. Like smaller anabantids, they prefer floating foods. So things like freeze-dried bloodworms, freeze-dried Daphnia, for example, are great to feed to them. If you're going to feed them frozen food, it usually has to be chopped up. They relish that as well. Flake foods, variety of them, and small granular foods like bug bites, for example, great treat to give them. Despite the fact that they are slow sinking, these fish will really appreciate it, since they do feed on smaller insect larvae in the wild as well. And last but not least, a live food treat, always a great thing. Live baby brine shrimp, we always recommend that, especially for smaller species of tropicals, where it's so easy to give them that treat, so easy to hatch them every 24 hours if you wish. Make sure to include that in a bit of their diet once a week if you can. Not necessary, but if you can do it, it's better for them. So in summary, this is a great fish to add to a planted aquarium. Great for a small desktop type tank, 15-20 gallon. Where you have a few other species that complement them perfectly, like I said, dwarf loaches and possibly a dwarf rasbora, a couple of them, be a really nice small community tank. And don't forget to keep them in slightly acidic water, a little bit on the softer side. Around the 80-degree mark is preferable. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Please let us know about any other fish that you'd like to see us do on Species Spotlight. Leave us a comment below, and of course, don't forget to leave us a like. Thanks.